That's really a North American thing, man. We like our pets more than we like people. It's very
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, but it's so true.
See a person, you're like, hey. And I see their dog, I'm like, oh my God, hi, like come over.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast. My name's Ian Armour and I'm joined with my co-hosts Janelle and Manny. We are real estate investors in Halifax. We've done BRRRRs, we've done flips, we've done a whole bunch of stuff, and yeah, we've done about 60 units or so, both sides of the border, and we're students of the real estate game and looking to continue our quest for knowledge, and in so helping you guys as well gain a greater understanding of the real estate game. So that's where we're at. While you're listening, please like and subscribe. We would like to grow this channel so we can spread our words to even more people. So for today, what we're going to do is we're going to continue the mini series on how to buy an income property. So what we did, we started that in episode 14 when we went over some things to consider. Then I'll take you back to episode 3 and episode 13 for deal finding. Then for financing, we had Blake Wilson on, and that was episode 15. For some raising private money, things to consider there, that was episode 9. And analyzing deals was episode 7. So if you want to go back, and those are some of the first things to consider and first things to wrap your head around. But we're going to fast forward a little bit here, and we're going to go right to day one. You've just purchased your income property, and here are some things to consider. So before we get into that, we would like to go over what's going on in the news. And I think if you're from Halifax or you know anyone from Halifax, pretty much everyone's talking about the same thing, and that is the wildfire. So Manny,
crazy.
Janelle, you guys want to go over how that's going in your life?
Yeah.
Man, it's been pretty rough. My in-laws have been evacuated. Luckily, their house, as of now, is still fine. But I have coworkers and I have other friends whose houses were right in the heart of the fire, and God knows what condition they're in right now. I think I saw a stat, Ian, you said yesterday, some 200 houses have been damaged, whether that be totally burnt to a crisp
now.
or just 250 now. Damn, it's getting worse and worse. This is the most devastating fire, since I think there was one back in 2009, but it was pretty isolated in the woods. It wasn't like within a subdivision or multiple communities, so it's pretty sad to see.
Yeah.
Are your in-laws staying with you?
And when
No, they're staying with my brother-in-law, which he's just a little closer to them.
Yeah, no, I was going to say our U.S. partner, Thomas, he's from California and he's used to all these wildfires. And he's like, I didn't know you guys got fires. And I said, that's because we don't. But this just seems to be the year for him. So like you hear, obviously, the devastation that's going on really close to home. But like that's not even the biggest fire. The one down in Shelburne is I don't even know the scale of it, but it's much bigger and
is it
even
really
crazier. So it's way bigger. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it's just this one's obviously getting all the news and attention because there's a lot more homes. But the other one, like in terms of hectares being burnt, I don't quote me on this, but I'd say it's probably close to double.
Crazy.
But no homes. It's really isolated in the woods.
Few, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people from out west might be like, oh no, like it's not a bad fire at all. Like one thing that I've kind of noticed is that like in an area like this, since we don't get fires, like we're just not near as like equipped to deal with it. And like I know a lot of people who used to go to BC to work like as a firefighter, and like that was their thing for like the summer or whatever. So like they're a lot more equipped, and like they have a lot more like bomber planes and stuff like that. But like I know that ours, they had to bring it all the way from Newfoundland. Like they flew the plane all the way here. So that's pretty crazy. I'm getting calls and like seeing posts from people who have like lost their homes. I've spoken to a couple people now, and I'm first of all like, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's awful. I'm like, you said like your house like proper like burnt down. They're like, yeah, it's gone. I'm like, I can't even imagine. So I just feel so bad for those people that had like no time to leave. Like it was only like 15-20 minute warning if that. But yeah, so like hopefully they'll get all those people settled, the people who need like that year to rebuild or whatever happens like with insurance and all that stuff. But I really wonder what the province would have done if Airbnbs weren't still in Halifax. Like I genuinely say that because I know a lot of people who have Airbnbs right now and they're canceling their bookings to free it up like long term to get people in there. So I don't know. It's I mean it's a great thing because it's like you have a family of 4, like you don't want to live in a hotel for a year.
Yep. And you could put me in that category. I've got guests or I've got people that were in the fire, evacuated from the fires, currently staying in my Airbnbs, and I'm happy to host them. And it was literally like, and I've got one that's like a particularly sad story. They asked if they could move into my place and bring their dog, their elderly dog, and the dog was so stressed out on the move that they had to put it down on the way to my house.
So sad.
And so here you get evacuated from your house, you pack up all your stuff, your dog, and they didn't even make it to my house before having to do that. So my heart really goes out for them. And again, just happy to be in a position where I had one of my Airbnbs was vacant, and I was able to just put them right in there. So again, happy to help. It's devastating out there, and they're just one small example of how many people have lost pets. Like we're very fortunate that as far as now, there's been no lives claimed, but there's been lots of pets and obviously homes, and so it's sad stuff.
I don't know if you guys saw the story of that little schnauzer. He was lost, but no, he came back. They found him.
Oh really?
Yeah, he was able to survive for a couple of days out there in the wilderness by himself in a fire.
Man,
so good on the little guy.
These stories get me. I like when I was younger, like I was not like emotional at all. Like other people pass away and that stuff, I'm like, that's horrible. But if I watched like a movie and like a dog died, I'm like, done.
That's really a North American thing, man. We like our pets more than we like people. It's very odd.
It's so crazy, but it's so true.
See a person, you're like, hey, and I see their dog, I'm like, oh my god, hi, like come over.
Oh, it's true. And it happens with me, with my dog, when people are way more excited to see my dog than see me. So, but yeah. So in conclusion, our hearts go out to everyone affected by the fires. We're here trying to do what we can to put our stamp on this things to try and help people out. But yeah, let's move to back to the real estate side of things, so we can start getting things going there. So as mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I listed off a number of episodes where we went a little bit more in depth on some of the strategies, some of the methods to actually procure a property. And now we're going to focus on a little bit more of, okay, now that we have a new property, what are some of the things to consider when moving forward with that? So good timing for us. Manny and I, we just closed on our US deal, and Janelle is pretty fresh off closing one of her deals in the south end of Halifax. So this is very fresh for all of us, and we're just putting that stuff together. So why don't we start with Janelle? What are some of your top things to consider after the purchase has been done?
After the purchase has been done, I guess I'll just jump back and say that prior to closing, I would have contacted contractors and have them come through or show them photos. So considering after purchase, I would be going there with the contractor, getting them going. So when you're actually starting off, like they usually have a couple more questions. I'm actually having more renovations done to another house next week. So I'm kind of just getting into this round 2. But yeah, like when someone gets in there, it's just so important to give them like clear direction and go over the plan, reiterate it, talk about the plan further down the line. It's like, oh, this is what we're doing for kitchens. Okay, where are we getting the cabinets? Like have that discussion right when you close, especially stuff they have to like order ahead. And then also just mention too, just thinking of it now, like utilities, like make sure your utilities are all in your name. And oftentimes, like at least here in Halifax, some bills are a little bit funky that like you have to pay the first one manually, and then you can put the following in like pre-authorized debit or like whatever like that. So that's something to keep an eye out, like that first month, kind of checking in on your accounts and making sure everything's set up properly. But yeah, that's some of the stuff that just kind of comes front of mind right now.
Absolutely. And I guess just to add to that, so this is how we're buying properties, and especially if it's some people out there where they're doing a lot of the work themselves, or it might be like a duplex or a single unit, or they want to be a little bit more hands-on with it. My advice there would be there's certain materials that you're going to want to order a lot sooner than the other. So the main ones that come to mind would be the kitchen, would be windows and doors. So all of that, a lot of that stuff's either custom, or especially if you're just, putting in old windows and stuff. Some of those things, we've heard the nightmare supply chains of a year ago. It's not quite that bad, but it's still not good. So those are the main things that I would say, let's not put those off, because you might get to a certain point and then you're just sitting around waiting for those things to come in. So if you can get off to the races early with those items, a lot of the other stuff you can find around. So
deal proper preparation prevents poor planning.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah, I do too. So no, that's great. So Manny, what are some of your main considerations when after you've closed?
Well, like Janelle touched on, the biggest thing is just like kind of go back to what your plan was and just start to execute. So like I like that you mentioned about the things about the utilities and stuff, because that's something Ian and we just kind of messed up on our 24 unit that we bought, and our tenants didn't have hot water for a weekend. And that is our bad. But yeah, so like, let's say you have a property manager. Let's say it's a long distance deal. At this point, you need to be in very close contact with your property managers, because even though we're not there to manage everything, we have to manage them. Because if we don't, costs can go up, timelines can go long. We really have to kind of stay on them to kind of make sure the job's done efficiently and, cost effectively. So that's kind of my biggest thing, especially for myself from the get-go. I've always had a general contractor of sorts. I was never really super hands-on with the renovations. It was never my thing. I don't know anything. I know like high level, I know some things, but it's like, I don't know specific.
The hammer hits the nail.
Exactly. So, our property managers in the Cleveland deal, we're having calls with them once a week, sometimes even more frequent, to make sure everything's in order. The main property manager has an assistant, and she's been emailing us almost every single day, keeping us updated.
She's been on, yeah.
And that's perfect. Awesome. That's what we want, and that's what we need to kind of have to be secure and comfortable, and we know what's going on, and then we can relay the message back to our investors. So yeah, that's the biggest thing for me right now, and that's what I would advise anybody else. It's like if you have a property manager, or if you have a general contractor handling everything for you, don't just sit back and wait for them to finish the job, because that's not ideal.
I know for my contractor, like I'm there like every other day or so, just like pop in. And again, it's convenience wise, like it is super close. It could be done like a phone call or FaceTime or whatever, but in person's nice. They're always fun to chat with. So but it's just nice because like as they go along, like we're kind of making small adjustments along the way and having that discussion of like, okay, like we kind of ran into this, like what's easiest now, especially when you're doing renovations on older properties, because there's always surprises. And as move along, like for example, the ceiling, I think it was on purpose in this case, but it was like sloped like a pretty significant amount, like nothing straight. Like, so just we're always sort of adjusting the plan, just making sure it's optimized and just kind of making life easier for both people.
Absolutely. Because they like that as well. It's like, I don't want to be micromanaged, but I want to, have an opportunity to discuss any potential changes or anything that I see or forecast, all that good stuff. So
it's like, hey, like we're running into this, like we're going to make this change, and, it's going to change the budget a little bit. And it's just like, oh, pretty, like, okay, like great, like perfect communication.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I guess on that note, so a strategy that we've adapted, so Janelle and I do this on all of our buildings, Manny and I are now doing this forward, is especially in the beginning, we are now doing like a weekly meeting where we have the whole team. So all of our partners are active partners, plus the property manager, plus the guy, the girl, or in whatever case, the guy that's actually chatting with the tenants, the people that are in charge of the construction side of things. We're meeting once a week, and we have a checklist that we build, and we just read that off to them the next following week is, okay, this is what we're hoping to get done this week. Let's shoot for that. Then we can talk high level, there's this, and this going on. How are we handling it? What are we doing with it? And then we can touch base on, the tenants, touch base on the construction, all that good stuff. I love those meetings. They're not one of those meetings that are just like redundant. It's like, okay, this is getting things done, especially in the beginning. Once the building's a little bit more stabilized, your life's good. But a lot of the projects that we're buying, you need to do a lot of work up front. You need that to get the right tenants in or whatever it might be. But it's something that isn't just, lost in an email chain. It's actually, okay, here's the updates, here's the goals, let's get after them. And I just find that's a really good way to touch base and just keep things rolling.
I find like a lot of tiny things pop up in those meetings, or like you'll catch a couple little things. It's like, oh wait, like they mentioned something about that tenant, and it's like, okay, like wait, what's going on there? And like, oh yeah, like this and this happened, and it's like, okay, like wait, let's talk about that for a second. Or as you're having that call or that meeting, and it's like, oh, I forgot about this little thing I meant to ask you, or oh, did like we were double checking the garbage pickup this week, like were you by? Like just little stuff that I find I sometimes like almost pile up for meetings because it's just like so little that I don't want to bother someone, but I want to know about it, like that kind of type stuff.
Yeah, and it's again just a good way to blast through that list of all these little nagging things. Okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? And then it's on that list, so it's not just lost in your mind like, oh yeah, it's like, no, this is written down, this is communicated, and you can get some results that way. So
another thing that I thought about too, just because we're talking about property managers, when you take over the building, purchase the building, and your property manager are coming on board or they're staying on board or whatever, sorting out that first month's rental payments can be, I'm sure like you guys are going through that right now, but just the nuanced details of like, we've got to get our banking information. Okay, like the bookkeeping, is that set up? Like, oh, if it's like a rental assistance, like is that set up? Do we fill out the forms to make sure it's going to the new owners? Like all this stuff. And it's like, one thing if it's like one or two tenants, you bought a duplex and it's like, all right, you transfer me now, like that's great. But when you get into like 12, 14, 20, 24 units, then it's like, this is a thing.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. And great. I can think of like, I'm thinking of a ton now. Again, like that's exactly it. Like that's kind of the point that we're trying to make. Like as you kind of start chatting about stuff, you're like, wait, this too. Especially that first month, depending on it, talking about some bigger buildings. If you've made a corp, for example, and it's in its new bank account and it's not in like your regular bank account with your savings or whatever, then that first month mortgage payment, especially if you bought like a large building, is pretty substantial. So again, it's so important to make sure that your rent is coming in because you want to be covering those costs. Like that's super important. When it's like a $5,000-$6,000 payment coming out and like, you're getting your rent, like a couple of days of like kind of missing things or things not being on the ball, it can really, really hurt you. And you don't want that. You don't want that like kind of starting off with bad foot with a bank. Like you want to start off well and be like, look, we're making our payments just like we promised we would.
Yep. No, great point. Manny, another one from you.
Yeah, I guess, after you're managing the property manager, like we said, it's just kind of staying with it. I've been guilty in the past of like once, like the first month or so, I've been, like we said, I'm on the managers, I'm on the contractors and all that stuff, but just not to get complacent because, after a while, there's no updates. It's like, okay, same things happening. We're just waiting for tenants to leave. But also it's just, don't stop like talking with the property managers. Like relatively consistent communication is important. And then also if you have investors, like for us in our deal, we have quite a few people that have put money into our deal. It's just being able to kind of communicate back to them, letting them know how everything's going. Investor relations is huge, especially when you start buying larger assets and you have more people on the deal. Like if you have syndications, a lot of people have whole like roles or a whole job assigned to just one person. You're the investors relations guy. You keep the people happy. You keep them updated, once a week, whatever it may be, once a month. Just make sure you have like a newsletter. Like Ian suggested, like what we're probably going to do is like with our weekly call, we're going to record it on Loom, and then we can either give it directly to our investors so you guys can kind of watch the video, see what's going on, or we can just give you like the summary, a little summary of what's going on. And
I think like that speaks a lot because some investors, they might not necessarily watch it, but they're just like, oh, that's so great that information is there. And if I want to, like, I can go back to it. Or it's fantastic that they're doing that and they're offering that. And even like same thing with like newsletters, like I'll send them out and I'm sure people are looking at them. But I think just that act itself, like, oh, like they're happy to provide clear transparency on like where they're at. That's fantastic.
No,
we even have a group chat Like we have a WhatsApp group chat because there's not a whole lot of us. This is really more of a JV style deal. So it's like, the 3 active guys, and then we have 4 other people that have kind of put money into it. So there's just 7 of us. We're in a WhatsApp group, and we'll just have conversations in there about what's going on. We'll get people's input. So it's not just like me, Ian, and Thomas make all the calls. These guys have somewhat of a say, so we keep them updated on really much everything. And if they ever have questions, they can just talk in the chat, or they can message us directly and kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Perfect. Another one that I thought of too is utilities. So again, like making sure that you're paying for the utilities, but then also checking the bill itself. We ran into that issue several times. I've gotten a bill or like gotten an email that a bill's been paid and like this is the amount, and I'm like, whoa, hold on. Particularly like water. I don't know if anyone else has as much issues with Halifax water as like I seem to do, or like the tenants are just using the water, I suppose. But the variation in the bill, like you're seeing, it's like, oh, it's $100, $100, $100, and then it's like, wait, it's 300. You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Like, what happened? Is there a leak? Even if your property manager is paying it, like keep on top of it. Like I urge people, you can bleed money that way. You can lose like an entire year's rental income just from like one wrong bill.
100%. My first duplex, the bottom tenants, they were just running their hose like out in the grass for like 6 hours. And I only found out because the top tenants didn't like them and they snitched on them and they told me. So I just drove down and I saw, and I just turned it off, and I messaged the lady. I'm like, you can't just have this going. It's killing my water bill. Yeah. I pay the utilities there.
Yeah.
Yep. No, definitely makes sense.
Or they had a pool. They wanted to have a pool in the backyard. And they're like, can we fill it up with your water? I'm like, how big is your pool? Is it like a little kiddie pool? Maybe. I'm not the dictator, but like if you got a big ass pool, I don't think so.
Yeah. Truck some water in for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not right now.
No. Yeah. All water in Nova Scotia is spoken for right now.
No. Don't be saying.
Yeah. No, that's great, guys. Anything else we want to conclude with?
Yeah. I don't really have much off the top of my head. I think we touched on a lot of it.
Yeah, I guess I'll just echo your point about staying on it. So it's like with all of this stuff, you hear about, well, obviously, what we're doing is entrepreneurial and stuff, but to be a good entrepreneur, it's like, it's not about doing all the work and like, constantly stressed and all this good stuff. It's about building those systems to make this thing manageable, especially if you're planning to scale. So it's like, that's it. It's like, instead of having to go through every email that every property manager sending us, it's like, set up that hour chat a week or whatever. I mean, you still want to get those emails, but to go over every detail of every little thing day in and day out, that's going to be really tough. So build those systems where, yes, you can have some more efficient communication with the members of your team, investors, whatever it might be. So like for us, instead of going to every investor and updating them this and this, like we said, our system for that is to film a quick video once a week, send it out, done, away we go. So it's like doing those types of activities as much as possible to make your investing more efficient is going to not burn you out, allow you to scale and just live a better life. So those would be I think the best way to conclude all that good stuff. So
yeah.
So other than that, we're going to continue down this mini series path where we're going to just go over just a little bit more from our experience, what we've done personally, what we've learned about what other people we know are doing, and just kind of pull back the curtains a little bit for you guys to see this type of stuff. So if you've liked this podcast here, please give us another 5-star review, like with some friends, all that good stuff. Again, trying to grow this podcast, and we enjoy doing it, so we'd like to spread it around to as many people as we can. So on that I would say would do it for us today. So thank you again, everyone, and we'll chat with you next week.